In Spain, hundreds of former members of the military have criticized the government for making a pact with pro-independence forces. They even mentioned the possibility of organizing a coup. Our correspondent Adriana Cardoso brings us the details from Madrid.
Several scandals have shaken the Spanish armed forces in recent days. Over 200 retired army commanders sent letters to the King of Spain and signed a manifesto assuring that the country's unity was threatened by the government's leftist coalition. The defense minister criticized the attitude of this small group, stating it doesn't represent the Spaniard armed forces.
By using the power of a military career from which they are very far away and without defending the Catholic values, they intend to imply His Majesty, the King, by vulnerating the political neutrality which is paramount.
From within the armed forces, democratic movements claim that Franco's influence still survived within the military. After the civil war, the victorious army purged its ranks by allowing only the dictatorship's followers to enter the armed forces. For this reason, a progressive government activates the alarms.
There are many officers who still maintain the feeling of nostalgia, not exactly for a dictatorship, but for a more conservative, more nationalist, more patriotic regime.
In addition to the letters, conversations from an ex-military chat room were leaked, in which they plotted about purging the Reds and executing 26 million Spaniards. And despite having initially supported this group of retired military personnel, the ultra-right-wing party Vox has distanced itself from its discourse.
That's completely unrelated to us. It is a military chat with no boss member, deputies or affiliates with president that we know of, and therefore we have no understanding of what goes on in this chat.
The Defense Ministry asked the Public Prosecutor's Office to investigate whether this is a crime, especially not to frighten the citizenship with the threat of a coup d'etat, since it must be remembered that Spain has a tragic history of military-led protests and coup d'etat.
That the people get scared. Let's see if you are going to happen again, and not being able to tell if it was said by a small group of retired military staff or by the armed forces. That's why it's positive the defense minister and the chief of staff have stated that it's not the armed forces.
Threats, far from being carried out, intend to involve the king in order to attack the government. A king who has not even spoken out to criticize the coup attitudes of a sector of the same armed forces of which he is the supreme commander.